You're a failure.
And that's okay. Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm Alicia.
And
And we're
we're
failures
failures
too.
too. We take a walk back through people's failures and relive the mistakes they made so we all can have more clarity in how to be a better human. Hello and welcome to the very first live podcast recording for the 2020 Perspective. Alicia, are you excited?
I'm so pumped. I'm ready to do this. This is our first live podcast.
I know all of them before we sat down with somebody and had a nice conversation, then we took it back to the shop and edited it down. Nah, we're doing it live. This is gonna be great. So this is kind of a brand new way for all of you who are watching this live right now or listening to the recording. It's like this cognitive dissonance right now. This is the start of season 3. This is like the beginning, which is like also bananas. That we're on season 3 of the 2020 Perspective. And we thought that today, the theme really kind of like in line with kicking things off is that, getting it done versus getting it, quote, right. And you know what? Today, we're going to get it done. So excited.
Get her done.
So I guess we should introduce ourselves for those of you who haven't heard this podcast and or on this Facebook Live right now. My name is Dan Newman. I run Learn to Scale, which is a coaching program and consultancy for employee engagement professionals. And I'm joined by my podcast co-host.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alicia Engel. I am an organizational development consultant and speaker. And I am also a co-host of the 2020 Perspective, a podcast about failure or maybe it's even about resiliency, because we ask people about, some not so great experiences in their life and then what they learned from it or how they operate differently because of it. And they're very juicy stories.
And so this season, we're going to intersperse these live broadcasts with interviews that we are having with individuals about their failure stories. So don't worry, the 2020 that you know and love is still being produced, but hey, done is better than waiting for it to be right. So let's just do it. Let's do it. So let's kick it off with a little Rosebud Thorn. Rosebud Thorn, something good, something you're looking forward to, and something bad. What do you want to start with?
I'll start with my rose.
Okay.
Not work related, but I am leaving to go to Park City tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
For a long weekend getaway. Very excited to get some time away and to be in the mountain air and spend some time with my people.
And what does one do in Park City? Is this like a jungle gym or what is it?
Skiing. We're actually going snowmobiling. It's my boyfriend's dad's 60th birthday. So it's actually going to be a weekend of festivities.
Oh, cool.
Like lots of fun people, eating, drinking, snowmobiling, skiing, all the festivities.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, my rose, I don't know if it's considered, is this a bud or a rose? Because it hasn't happened quite yet, right?
Yeah, I was playing with both of those, but I have a good one for bud, so I just decided to use this as my rose.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take it as a bud because this weekend I'm going to go skiing as well. I'm going to go up to New Hampshire, hit Sunapee, and I haven't gone skiing all season. I haven't gone skiing in like a couple of years, but I'm super excited because I used to go skiing every weekend when I was younger. So I am excited to tear up the mountain.
Do you do black diamonds? Like what kind of?
Double blacks. Yeah, that's double black Gina. Life.
Dang, Gina. Okay. Well, don't break anything. All right.
I hope not. I actually have been doing leg workouts in anticipation. So if anyone's curious which leg workouts I'm doing, I can post that out because my legs are butter right now. Which I'll put that as my thorn. You know what? My thorn is I can't walk like a normal. I tried going down the stairs to take the dog out, and I'm doing that kind of like weird, like turn your hip and kind of like tilt your whole body because I can't actually pull my leg up and down. So I'm going to put that in the thorn category. But it might be a someday bud when I'm ripped in the legs.
Love that. Okay, good for you. I can't wait to hear about your trip. Okay, well, my bud is that, this is, I think, aligned with the topic of today is just getting something done. And my bud is that I actually applied for a speaking engagement, I was
Mm.
like, you know what? I have my topic, I have my content. I don't have to have it perfect. I'm just going to pull the ripcord and just apply with what I have and what I could talk about right now. And
Done
so
is
I did
better than
that.
quote right.
Yeah.
Your life was leading up to this episode.
This week was definitely leading up to that episode. So that's exciting. And I was contacted by a former colleague and friend about a speaking engagement. And
Mm-hmm.
she wants to hire me to talk to her team. So I thought that was pretty cool. There could be something happening there. So that's a bud in the
Well, I
works for
am
me.
wishing the best of bud luck to you, that it turns into a beautiful rose and not just an ugly thorn on the inside.
Love that. Thank you. Okay. And what's your rose?
My rose. So, I've been really worried about some things with my business, about like trying to reach out to new people. And I sat down and I set up a little like to-do list using stones in a jar. So I'd like drop a little stone in the jar when I reach out to a stranger. And it's made me so much more confident in reaching out to people and just saying like, hey, I'm a human, you're a human. Let's just like human together. And the reception has been way better than I expected. So something that I thought was going to be a thorn turned into a rose.
That's wonderful. I'm
Yeah.
proud of you. Good job.
And that
And
feels like,
oh, sorry.
no, go for it. This is
I was
live.
just gonna say my thorn.
Yes. What's your thorn?
My thorn is, where did February go?
I think it
What?
went to Australia.
What?
I just think it's in Australia right now. Like people were like, February was cool, but it went on vacation.
I mean, this month or last month flew by, and it's already March, and it's making me take a pause to say, okay, what have I accomplished so far? And
Mm-hmm.
what have I not accomplished so far? And in another 3 months, am I going to be okay with where I am if I continue operating the way I have been? And the answer is no. So,
A change is coming. A bud is starting to form.
yeah, so I have to start getting stuff done, right? So anyway, that's my thorn. Where did time go?
Well, I feel like now is a good time to turn to kind of like the core question of today, which is talking about a time in your life when you were kind of more focused on getting something, quote, right. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast, I'm doing the scare quotes thing, like, quote, right,
Mhm.
and delayed getting it done. I mean, my inspiration was, hey, let's do this podcast episode live. And that is something that I think I've been worried about, trying to get it
Mhm.
right and like getting it, nailing it. But I was just going to get it
Yeah.
done. So tell me a little bit, what are times in your life or a moment in your life or a thing right now that you are grappling with that you are so more focused on getting it, quote, right, whatever right looks like, rather than getting it done?
Mhm. The first thing when I first heard this question, the memory or thought that popped into my brain was this looming. For some people, they're just going to scoff at this, but for me, it was just a daunting exercise that I needed and wanted to build a website for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And for years, I'm talking years, like 2, 3 years, I was trying to make it myself. And I was going to my little Wix site and I was putting
Mm-hmm.
things together. And then by the time I actually went back to it and would, update it or try to change it before I launched it, when I'm building it, I would go back to it and I'm like, well, I need to redo all of this, because what happened is I was evolving so quickly that what I was trying to put out there was evolving. And
Mm-hmm.
I just was not able to push the launch or publish button because I felt like it had to be perfect. It had to completely represent
Mm-hmm.
me. Really, that's part of your entire brand. I just needed to get it done, have something out there, and know that it will evolve as I'm continuing to evolve as, an independent business person. And so during COVID last year, earlier on in COVID, I decided, you know what, this is something that is taking me longer than I would like.
Uh-huh.
And I don't necessarily have all the time in the world to do it. It's taking me
Mm-hmm.
longer than someone else who does it. This is something I'm just going to pull the trigger on. I'll hire someone to do it, and I will do my best to take a snapshot in time of who I am to put on the internet. And I
Mm-hmm.
did. Finally, it took so long for me to do it because I wanted it to be right. I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to
Of
be all
course.
encompassing of Alicia. Well, like I'm not even at the destination yet. So like I can't have a website that's like, completely represents me because I'm still working on me, right?
So lead me through that moment of choice where you admitted to yourself that the pace of getting this thing right was too slow. Bring me there.
Yeah. Yeah, so I actually picture myself, a very vivid picture pops up where I'm sitting at a coffee shop in New Orleans, where I
Mhm.
lived before, where I am now, and I'm at a table at like 5:30 in the morning. And I was like the first person there
So
as soon as they wake
early.
up, so early, because I was teaching at like 4:30 a.m. at a workout place.
Oh wow.
And
I
then
didn't realize you were teaching that early at a workout place.
yeah, I was teaching super duper early, so I was done by like 5:30, and then I would work a little bit on my, entrepreneurial endeavors, and I'm sitting at this coffee shop so early in the morning, staring at a computer, kind of basically going through my experiences, my career experiences, my resume and all things, and thinking that I've done a good bit at this point, but there's so much more, and I'm trying to like pull it all together and try to tell it, like make it tell a story. And then 6 months later, I sit down at the same table and I look at it again. I'm like, wow, I've done so much more than this. This is not just it. How do I capture what it is that I do? And
Mhm.
so, fast forward over the last several years, every time I think back to what do I put out into the world that represents me, it was just this like very heavy, overwhelming feeling of like, you know, just a daunting feeling
Mhm.
of how do I bring all of these experiences together that really tells people my story and who I am and how I can like help them or
Mhm.
enhance their lives or engage people at their event or whatever it is. And it really just, I think, stared me in the face when we were all quarantined and I was
Uh-huh.
spending a lot of time
Just looking at you.
reflecting. Right. And I'm sitting in my apartment by myself for not just weekdays, but weekends and nights and all the things. And I finally said to myself, I can't take any more brain power thinking about this. It's time for me to execute. I have enough
Yes, execute.
here. Yes, I have enough here in front of me that I can pull the trigger and get out what I have. And someone's got to help me because I had to admit to myself, I can't do this. And it's not that I physically can't build a website because I've done it before, but it was for me, I think it was too personal to where I
Mhm.
could not make a decision. Like if I made you a website, Dan, I mean, I could do it. It'd take me a couple hours, but I could put something together. I've done it for other people. I've done it for like their books or whatever. And I knew that it was just too personal. And it was like, I am not good with pulling the trigger when it comes to me because I want everything out there and I don't want to miss a thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, you're doing something that you're basically set up for failures. Like, how do you take yourself, Alicia, a multi-dimensional, complex being with years of experience and stories, and turn into a one-dimensional, scrollable, like click-through thing? Like that you are setting yourself up for failure. So, I
Hmm.
mean, the expectations, I bet, were mounting and mounting while the website was languishing and languishing.
Yes.
I mean, that's tough. Like and I'm so glad, you were able to figure out what to do with it. And so tell me about the catalyst. So you sat in that cafe, you were thinking about this, you said this isn't going to work. How did you get then started into action?
Ooh, that's such a good question. It's one thing that I did. I should probably go back to doing this because it was such a huge transition for me to work remotely and by
Mm-hmm.
myself all the time. Is I made a big flip chart that I had in the middle of my workspace and it had divided up into columns. It was days of the week and no, it wasn't days of the week. That's not true. It was one flip chart per day and I had sticky notes and the flip chart was divided up between different activities, so work activities, brain breaks,
Wow.
side hustle, exercise, all the things. And then it was like every hour increment.
Mm-hmm.
And every day, at the end of the day, I would take sticky notes. I'd chop them up into little pieces, and I would put in when I am going to do what for the day. Like
Oh, you're still
even when
working
I
on
would take a break for my dog to walk my dog, what time of the day I would work out. And I said, in one column that was like my business stuff, like my side hustle, future business, whatever, it was like listed all the things on sticky notes that I wanted to do. It's like, this is a lot of stuff.
it.
Where can
Mm-hmm.
I fit this piece in today? Where can I fit this piece in? Maybe this piece is going to take a whole week. So I'm going to put it in here today and here tomorrow.
So you basically made a Kanban board for your life. You organized it like a scrum master of figuring out how challenging the story points were and
Mhm.
allocating your resources. And it is very command and control, which is awesome because life can sometimes feel like it spirals out of control.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And you know what? At some point, I'm not sure when I took that flip chart down. I think when this became more this environment that we're in became more normal and I was sick of like having, I mean, I live in a small apartment having a flip chart in the middle of my living room all the time. Um I think that I decided I would take it down and it was just kind of like I was used to it every day. Like I'm used to looking at my calendar and saying, here I go. But I think the difference is when I had that flip chart, I was able to see physically all the other things that I want to do that are not part of my,
Yeah.
my quote unquote 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
9 to 5, that that I want to fit in to make sure that I am continuing to move along in my solopreneur journey that I hope to do. And I don't want, you know, to my thorn, the point of my thorn today, I don't want another 3 months to go by, another year, another 2 years, and not have myself set up for really taking that leap into a true solopreneur life.
So are you ready to put that flip chart back up in your place?
Yeah, I totally am. And I think it's evolved. It's not so much that I'm going to have like all my work stuff because put all of my work stuff on a flip chart every day is a little much. But I
Mm-hmm.
think even putting it on my Outlook calendar for work at the beginning of every week, saying, where do I have holes in my week where I can
Mm-hmm.
pop in 30 minutes to work on a blog or 30 minutes to, prospect or whatever it is.
I love how you're using these techniques that I'm sure you're probably teaching the people that you mentor and coach, but you're applying it to yourself, which I have similarly felt the humble, like tasting the humble pie of, oh yeah,
Mhm.
this thing I recommend for others, it applies to me too. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
that, and it's useful. I mean, I've been using my planner, my quarterly planner every single day, and
Yeah.
I want to say it is work, but it does provide a little extra bit of clarity every single day.
Yeah. I think if we don't practice what we preach, then who are we to help other people, overcome some of the challenges that they're experiencing, right?
Amen. That's why we're here. That's why we're failing out loud.
Amen.
Let's fail
Fail
out
out
loud.
loud with us. Hmm.
Well, in anticipation of this live podcast recording, I decided to also take some of my own medicine and take something that I have been really dithering on to complete. And I just put it out on the interwebs today. And I was just like, here's my ugly baby. Tell me if you like it. So that was a little bit of the heebie-jeebies there.
Well,
Um,
let's hear about it.
So, I like building out online course content because, I have a background in doing instructional design and I like setting up my little movie set and my little camera and my lights and like wave in front of a camera and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I sat down about a month ago now and shot a ton of video. And then I said, well, I need to shoot more video so that the whole course looks good. And I never got around to shooting that next round of video.
Mhm.
And that was my excuse for not working on the stuff I'd already shot. I like had all the video, had all the audio. I knew roughly how it was going to go together. Was too worried about it not being good enough. That why
Right.
start? Because it's not efficient to start when I don't have all the video done. But
Mhm.
Dan, that was a month ago. You ain't going to get that video done. Just make what you got and make it. So that's what I
Right.
started this week. I made the intro video to my second on-demand course on how to be flippin' creative around employee engagement programming. And I'm pretty proud of the thing. Like, I feel really good that I made it. I was like, this is good. Like, I don't need more video like, this is a good intro.
Yeah.
So I got that intro done. It feels good that it's done. And now I'm just hoping someone's like, damn, this stinks. So then so I can be inspired to be like, well, let me make it better.
Yeah. Wow.
But
have you gotten any feedback yet?
Not yet.
Any interaction, but you just
I just kind of like
today.
shouted it from the mountaintops. I haven't really gone to somebody, and I have some people that I usually reflect with on Fridays. So I'm excited to sit down with my accountability buddies and say, hey, what do you think of my ugly baby? And they'll tell me what they really think. And they've got some video background. So I'm expecting them to give me some critical feedback. Kate and Rebecca, if you're watching this right now, I expect critical feedback on Friday. So that's one thing. But, you know, I think, Alicia, you know that in another life, also known as about 10 years ago, I used to write music. And that was that single time I sat down to write music was an exercise of it not being right. That was the time. And there's one example, and I was thinking of it today. There was an a cappella arrangement. So I used to be a big a cappella nerd. You can maybe find my videos on YouTube if you search hard enough. And there was this one song that I wanted to do for my solo. And I was also the music director of the a cappella group at the time. So I kind of had undue influence. And I said, everybody, we're going to do this thing. And they were kind of okay with it. And even though they said, Dan, we don't know if that's the right song for you, I was like, I don't care. I like it. I'm going to do it. So I regret that a little bit. So I picked the song and I made the arrangement. And I spent forever making it. And I made the most complicated dang a cappella arrangement because I was so worried about getting it right. Like it needed to be like sparkling and it needed to be effervescent. And I needed to be effervescent too because it was my solo. And so I spent so long working on it that I didn't get enough feedback from the people in the group as to, is this good? Does this work? Can you actually sing this thing? And, you know, when that whole thing ended in terms of teaching them the song and then going out to perform it, we performed that song the least. I had the least chance to do my solo because it was so hard and none of the group was feeling confident enough to get up on stage and perform it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a 2-level failure of I was too worried about it being perfect and they were too worried about nailing it. And so we performed it maybe like 4 or 5 times total over the life that we had it in the repertoire.
Yeah.
So I regret that. And I actually was trying to dig around and try and find the recording of it. And I haven't found it yet. But if I do, I'll post it out on the Facebook page and maybe I'll tag it at the end of this episode. But I got to find it first.
Wow. Well, you live and you learn, you know? I mean, what did you learn from that?
Well, certainly don't bully people into your vision because it's probably not going to work. I think I learned a lot that getting more feedback when you're doing something creative is inclusive and it's good, especially when you're doing something like a cappella, which you really depend upon the team to be able to pull it off. I think I learned a lot about my own kind of decision-making process. I kind of like set my mind and I thought I was right. So I just did it. And I made everyone else follow along with that. And I think that's been just a constant theme of my life is I get these like righteous, high and mighty opinions of what I should be doing and how it should work. And I don't consider alternatives and I don't consider bringing other people into the conversation.
You know, the shoulds, like, you know, I try really hard to catch myself with the shoulds, and I never want to be a shoulder. You should do this. I should do this. I should be doing that. Like when you start using the should, stop and ask yourself, where is that coming from? Is it because you think that it should be this way or it's right? That's a trigger word. That's a trigger word.
Ooh.
When you hear, for me,
that was one of our questions for today.
when I hear the word should, I'm like, what does that mean? Is that because I think that there's a certain expectation that I'm supposed to meet or that people are supposed to meet, or that, you know what I'm saying? It's a word that makes me now pause and think, why do I believe that something should be the way that it should, or I
Hmm.
should take a certain action? Took me a while to get to that.
That's great. That's such an insight of the should being a trigger word for right, for quote right. And like quote right, I think here is part of that of having some preconceived notion of how things should work out. Like this is the plan. The world, will follow the law of being right. And I
Hmm.
find in life it does a really good job of proving you wrong.
Hmm. Yeah, something that I have picked up on, I don't know, in the past so long is when, for me, and I've had lots of conversations about this with you, is what should I be doing next? What is the next right step?
Hmm.
What should I do about my business? What should I do about my job? It's kind of like you should do whatever you should do. Like, there is no right next step. There is the next step. You said that to me actually. And I'm like, you know what? You're exactly right. There is no prescribed path for anyone.
Hmm.
It's really about following the energy. What's what are you getting feedback on that feels good and right? And how are you helping impact others
Hmm.
that you're serving? It's not
Yeah.
what you should do, it's what feels like the right thing that you're doing. What are people receiving well, and what are you enjoying?
Not to make this too abstract, but as a guy who loves making things a little abstract, I think the shoulds, I think the society that we live in and the cultures that we inhabit and the communities that we live in, they do prescribe some shoulds. You should do this, you should pay your taxes, you should respect your elders. Like there's these rules that are written into these social fabrics that we live in. And it's so easy to take those social fabric shoulds and make them internal shoulds. And
Hmm.
then whenever you try and do something, you're now measuring yourself on your ability to match the shoulds. And
Yeah.
it's possible to fail. And that's
Yes.
super duper scary is that you're going to fail on what everybody around you, everyone in your country, everyone in your social group thinks is good. And it keeps you from taking any action at all.
I completely agree. And when you said that, it made me think of this one particular time, a memory, when a family member who I will not name on this podcast, she was telling me, this was several years ago, well, you should be saving up to buy. I think I was probably telling her about a place I was going to travel, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to like Costa Rica next month or something. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, well, you should be married right now, and you should be saving up for a
Oh.
house, and you should be like having a family. And I'm like, who said that? Like, who made up that rule? I'm
What
sorry
happened if
that
I don't?
I'm
Like,
not right. Whatever happened to like not doing that? We also have to remember, for listeners who don't know my background, I am from Louisiana. I'm from the South, and people, a lot of
mm,
people from where I'm from have never like left they've never left. And so they have a very limited view of the world. And so in their head and their mind, the shoulds are so ingrained because they have no other perspective of what
mm-hmm.
life can be like, what other options are available to them. And so, fortunately and unfortunately for me, I was shoulded a lot, and into like more of the society piece of it. So the idea
Mm-hmm.
of me starting a business or moving or traveling as a single woman is kind of like against the grain, you know? Which kind of worked out for me a little bit because I'm like, well, there's no expectation here at all. So if I fail, it's fine.
That confidence is not something to sneeze at. Is if you leave kind of the enclave and get out of the cave, you go walk out into this big scary world. You don't know these unwritten rules of what you can and can't do.
Hmm.
And I think some people bring really bravery simply because they come from somewhere else and go somewhere new. I feel like
Hmm.
that's kind of like in business speak. That's why new hires are super duper valuable because they show up and they haven't internalized the internal corporate rules of what you can and can't do. And who you can talk to and what questions can you ask. And
Totally. Yes.
I think, organizations that kind of torpedo people who challenge the shoulds really should reconsider that, because if they're if they're breaking these shoulds, perhaps the shoulds never should have been there.
Okay, I am loving this little alliteration thing we have going on. And yes, I love the point that you brought about new hires is the value that they bring. They in that form, but essentially a fresh perspective on something is so valuable. So, like you said earlier, getting feedback from your acapella group, like asking people, putting your ugly baby out there and asking for feedback will give you so much value,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to keeping it all inside and trying to put some lipstick on it and like, pretty it up with the bonnet or whatever. It's like, no, it's an ugly baby and it won't be better until you fail a little bit and maybe get the ugly truth. Speaking of, can I say this one thing
You
about
sure can, friend.
the about the name of our podcast? Can I say something about that?
Yeah, this is actually really germane to the conversation. Go for
Yes.
it.
Okay. So last week I was feeling inspired, and Dan and I had been talking a little bit about changing the name of our podcast because the year, even though the 2020 perspective, it has nothing to do with the year 2020, just it comes up because the year 2020 sucked for a lot of people so bad and was really obviously a stamp in time of this
Mm-hmm.
is a year to remember and not for good things. And so we were just thinking, maybe we need to have something that explains more about what we actually do about failure and learning from it. And so I just put out into some of my social media outlets about what should we change our name to. And I was a little nervous about it. I was texting Dan about 15 million times and I was afraid to open up the can of worms. But you know what? Thank you to everyone who responded. I mean, we got so many responses. People voted on the two names that we put out there. And then I also
Mm-hmm.
had a question where I opened it up, and so many people gave us name options and they were really good. And I mean, some of them were kind of bad, but a lot of them were really good.
Can't
And
get
so
too
I
good without going
wanted
through
to
some bad
just
ones.
true. And so I just wanted to say, thank you for those who responded. And we're still open to talking more about it and getting more options. But B, it was kind of like, we're opening up ourselves for failure and vulnerability. And without just opening that door and putting it out there, I think we just talking to each other would not have been open to all the rich ideas and perspectives that other people have that can
Mm-hmm.
then help us generate even more good juice for the podcast and for our other ventures.
And so I want to encourage anyone who's either watching this Facebook Live now or listening to the podcast recording is to email us your name suggestions. Either drop it onto Facebook and let us know what you think we should rename this thing that we've created. Email us at hello@the2020perspective.com, which, looking back, this might be like retconning the actual version of this episode at some point when, a year from now we have a new title and we have to come back here and just kind of like re-edit this episode. But that's a tomorrow problem. Let's get it out there. Let's get it done. So if you have any suggestions, please do let us know.
Yes. Thank
What
you.
a good call to action.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got one more question for you, and then I want to offer up our call to action for everyone for this episode. So, I was curious. Let's assume that we're wrong. All right. Is there a time where right actually trumps things getting done? So when is it more important to stick the landing than it is to get something done, get feedback, iterate, etc.?
I'm trying to think of a specific time or memory or thought, and I'm sure one will come to mind, but just in general, a time when I think getting it right trumps getting it done is in a medical emergency. or in the medical field. Like, I definitely, if I'm a patient, I definitely want it to be right as opposed to going like a cheaper route or just stitch me up because I'm like my guts are everywhere. Like, no, I want it done right because I don't want to have to come back and redo this situation. Um, and that's the only thing I can think of in general right now. Let me think for a second. Getting
So
something right.
because
What about you?
I was thinking of this question. I have an
Yeah. What
example.
do you have?
So again, in another life, and this was more like 5, 6 years ago, I was in student affairs in higher ed. And in student affairs, I was living in the residence halls, breaking up parties for a living, telling people to make good decisions. And an important part in the higher education scheme is paperwork.
Hmm.
And paperwork, such as I am walking my rounds on a Saturday night, I hear a party in an underage room, I knock, I document the situation. That documenting the situation needs to be right because it's an act that puts people's names on a list, and then they have to go through a process to figure out what happened and how do we make it right and how do we teach them along the way. And let me tell you, you bring the wrong people or you don't get everyone in the room to give you their ID cards and really identify you're the person, you put someone else through a world of hurt. You know, there's so many times where I would break up a party and someone would be like, "Oh, here's my student ID," but it's absolutely not them, but I didn't quite put that together. And I yanked someone in, the next day saying, "Hey, you're at the party, you're in trouble." And they were like, "No, I wasn't." And I was like, "Yeah, you were. I have your ID card." And, you know, it got dicey. So getting it right meant someone's justice in a way,
Mm-hmm.
in making
Mm-hmm.
sure that, the rights were wronged and that the right situation was addressed in a way that was equitable and fair to all the parties involved while still like moving things forward in the system. And in higher ed, breaking up a party could go very much underneath the radar. But on a macro perspective, knowing that this dorm room has parties every weekend, if I don't have reliable paperwork, the organization can't make smarter decisions long term. And so getting that paperwork right and being consistent mattered in the big picture.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Also, I would definitely be the person throwing or attending the parties. And I would like to think that I'm an honest person. I would give you my real ID card, but I would
Mm-hmm.
definitely be partaking in the festivities. I'll just say that right there, Dan.
Well,
So
if I was back in college, I'd be the one holding the party, but instead it's book club and we're getting really excited about this book that we're reading. And so, yeah, because I was a nerd. Still am. Okay.
Oh, I love that. Getting it right versus getting it done. I mean, this, I don't know if this totally applies to you. This might be a really stupid example, but it go to personal stuff. And I will say, go like getting it right, like finding the right person, like the right partner, you know?
Oh, that's
Um,
true.
yeah, then just like let's say you really want to have a family or you really want to be married. Well, like you can go out and do that. You can, get a baby. You can like just
Just find
marry
one
someone who's a willing participant. But
out at the
I think
park.
right, I think like really finding the right person, not even finding the right person, allowing the right person to come into your life means that you got to kiss some frogs and you have to be really clear on how it is that you want to feel. Just like when we were talking earlier about the shoulds, like,
Mm,
asking yourself, why am I saying should in this instance? Like, being really clear on what it is that you want, how you want to feel, and what it is that you're trying to achieve,
mm-hmm.
um because it's easy to check a box and be like, oh, I like this person, they're nice and they're
Mm,
fun, but is it really how you want to feel? Is it the right person for life,
mm-hmm.
so that's just a personal example.
No, that's great, and it makes me think of the episode we had with Lisa, the love coach,
Mm-hmm.
who basically has built a business around helping people find that right person out there,
Yeah.
rather than just get it done. And her Facebook lives are fire. but that's just saying.
She is good at what she does. She helped me tremendously. I mean, she helped me get really clear on what it is that I wanted and how, not just what I want, like tall, dark, and handsome, yay, but like how I want to feel, you know? Like I know who I am, but how do I want to feel when I am with a partner? So yeah. Go back, listen to that episode if you haven't already, because she is A, entertaining and hilarious, and B, also helpful for, what it is that you're looking to solve for in your failures. Like,
Yeah.
how do you move forward from your work setbacks or your relationship setbacks? It applies across the board.
Yeah. So Lisa the Love Coach, it's season 2, the last episode of season 2. It's a juicy one. It's a good one.
Good one.
Okay, cool. This is fun. This was not as scary as it needed to be, right?
This is so fun.
It's just like we're hanging out, chatting, schmoozing, whatever. It's podcast. So one of the things that, when we were talking about putting on this episode is, what's something that you can do walking out of this? And we wanted to give another plug for our 30-day question challenge. That 30-day question challenge was a chance to take some of those big scaries, some of those big dreams, and kind of push and poke on it a little bit day by day, and not be afraid of what the right answer could be. Because every day you'll get a fresh new question, and then you can kind of process through it. So you can download that ebook at bit.ly/30 days of questions. That's 30 days of questions. You could download that and just go to town, talk to yourself, record yourself. I would love to hear what kind of stories you're telling yourself. And since we're doing these Facebook Lives, maybe you could come join us. So if you dig this, if you want to share your failures live, email us at hello@the2020perspective.com.
We would love to help you. We're coaches. That's what we do.
Yeah,
so we can
just a live
if you don't know what you learned, how your perspective changed from your failure, if you're in the midst of your failure or your setback, Dan and I can coach you through it and talk about, what does this mean? How can you use this to move forward? How can you move forward?
What does this
What
mean?
does it all mean? But the 30-day question challenge, just a quick a little bit of context on that if you are not familiar with it. The birth of the 30-day question challenge happened when I was being coached by another person that I had met that was very helpful. And I had all these shoulds on my to-do list. All the shoulds. I should be writing my book. I should be writing my blog. And at the time, I was just starting my job and I'd moved to a new town. This is right before a pandemic. And I was burnt out. I should not be doing those things. So I created a stop doing list. And stop doing all the things that were basically the shoulds. And so what came out of that is in my commute time, I was working with Dan on these 30 questions. So he would send me one question every day. I'd record myself with my phone on my commute answering the question. No pre-thinking, no plan, just letting my thoughts just kind of come out. And then listening back to all the recordings gave me, and just the process of it, gave me a lot of clarity on, there's some patterns in here and there's some things I should be paying attention to. And it really helped me.
Yeah. So, and it was fun for me too, because I was going on a trip to Israel and going through the birthright ride. And let me tell you, there was a lot of thoughts swirling around. And so the questions gave me some anchor points to kind of answer some of these feelings that were a little inside. It's a technical term.
Yes. Trademark that.
I will. All right. You feel good about this?
So fun.
Oh,
yes,
God.
This is fun. This is great to chat. And I I hope that this topic of getting things done instead of getting it right was really relatable to people. And we'd really love to hear about what are some of the things that you have been trying to just get right and you've decided, or you are hoping to just get it done. And we'd love to hear about what that process is like for you and what you're doing about it.
Bring us into your conversations. We'll talk with you. It'll be fun. Okay, let's do this again. How about that?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Thursdays,
Let's do it again in 2 weeks.
Meet here. bring your questions, bring your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Thanks to No BS Brass Band for the bangin' show music. Check them out at nobsbrass.com. And if you want to join any of our live shows, follow us on Facebook at the 2020 Perspective. That's 20/20 Perspective. As always, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player so you can get the latest failures delivered right to your ears. And may your failures be spectacular.